Welcome to the Business Shop Podcast, where our guests speak on meeting the challenges of entrepreneurship, as well as offer tips and advice on business, marketing, technology, and more. Whether you are a newbie or a seasoned professional, this episode is for you. I am your host, Audrey Wiggins. Let's chop it up. Hello, Chop Squad. It is great to be with you as usual. And today I'm excited for our guest. His name is John DeMato, and he is a visual storytelling expert. He helps speakers, trainers, consultants, authors, and coaches create compelling imagery that elevates their brand, builds credibility, and connects deeply with their audience. With nearly a decade of experience producing raw, real-life moments as a field producer, Amari, his ability to capture genuine moments now serves thought leaders looking to communicate their expertise through visual storytelling. Now, we're going to learn a little bit more about John on the other side of this message.
Knock out your competition with Altogether Marketing. We elevate your brand. Take a stance with your business name, logo, the tagline, your colors, even the fonts for your business. And then jab left with your website. Jab right with core values. Back up with product experience and bring it on with you. Visit altogether.biz and let us help you create a knockout brand.
We're back, and John DeMato, welcome to the Business Chop.
Audrey, thank you for having me here, and I'm looking forward to chopping it up about some visual storytelling. What do you say?
Hey, let's get chopping. But before then, I'm going to say one more thing, and then you're going to take it over, all right? How's
all
that?
right, I got you.
Okay, all right. So the focus, this is according to John here, is always on capturing real life moments that matter, things that matter. It's not always about taking photos. It's about aligning. So now you know he's a photographer, right? Okay. It's about aligning how one shows up visually and what they say, ensuring a brand is as compelling and trustworthy as its message. John, welcome again, and let's start chopping about some fun things and accomplishments. You want to share a couple of those with us?
Sure. Outside of spending the majority of my time with a camera in my hand photographing people, whether they like it or not. Most of the time they like it. I'm not harassing people. Let's put that out there right now. But in my spare time, when I have spare time, one of the things that I love to do is really listen to comedy podcasts, sports podcasts. I'm a junkie for that stuff. So I love walking around, and that's another thing I like to do. I spend a lot of time when I'm not shooting in front of this laptop right here. So I need to break that up, not just for physical movement, but also mentally to keep myself mentally clear and focused. I like to just go out for long walks, and my goal is to get 20,000 steps a day. So
wow.
Yeah, I'm getting out there. Most of the reason for that is because my knees are shot to hell, so I can't run on a treadmill or run anymore. So now I have to do walking. But
well,
the good
I applaud
news
you for keeping moving.
yeah, I got to keep it moving, but I can't keep it too moving. So that's why it's walking, not running. But that whole process has been very instrumental in my ability to, brainstorm. Yes, I'm listening to music and I'm listening to those podcasts I mentioned before, but I'm also really thinking about what the future looks like and how I can further serve my people. And it's been a very valuable add to my lifestyle.
Yes, awesome. And professionally, then, what are some of your accomplishments or one that you want to share with us?
What are my accomplishments? I am not someone who really honestly cares about awards or anything like that. The biggest accomplishments that I get, and this is no BS, this is not me just saying this, but the truth of the matter is when I have a client or a team that I'm photographing and they look at these images and they say to themselves, that is me. That is my essence. That is what I look like. This is how I serve people. And this is how I want to present myself to the world. And they feel proud about it. And they're excited to share that with me. That honestly is the best, biggest, most magical accomplishments that I can ever receive. I don't need awards, but that stuff is really important to me when they say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that's gold. That's gold right there. I feel the same way. Yep. Yep, absolutely. You may get paid for the job, but it's the pay is really, like you said, touching that person's heart and they're satisfied.
I'm 100%. I
Yeah.
mean, the whole goal of this photographer, person in front of the camera, shooting these branding sessions, these events, photographing their books, at the end of the day, what really matters most is that this stuff creates a win-win opportunity for all of us, you know. And that's my goal every single time I pick up that camera.
Wow. And so you travel around then, John, and do these shoots?
Yeah, I get around. I get around.
You get around.
I I've actually one of the other things that my interests lie in, aside from the walking and the podcasts, is
Hmm.
checking the Delta app to see where my medallion status is. So yes, um it's not just about gamifying that. What it really is it's nice to be able to capture these folks in the environments in which they do their thing. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, it's not always a fit. And oftentimes I'm photographing these experts. They fly to me here. I'm in New York City. So they come here and I photograph them in certain spaces for that. That's appropriate for their personality and their brand. But also, sometimes I'll photograph people at conferences or events when we happen to be in the same place together and we kind of take advantage of what we have in front of us. So
Hmm.
getting that variety is important. Not just, you know, for my sanity of not shooting in the same place 87,000 times, but also because more importantly, it's about finding the most relevant and valuable spaces for my clients to be able to photograph them.
Because you're in a fun business and to capture those moments, I think that's real important. Yep. So thanks again for being here on the Business Chop.
Of course.
All right. So let's get down to some questions here. Let's put you to the test.
I
So,
wasn't ready for no test, but all right, let's go for it. Let's see what let's see how I do. I don't
hey,
know.
I'm sorry I come from a long line of teachers. I didn't want to be one, but somehow I ended up here.
I understand. All right, let's do it.
All right. All right. Off the bat, how can experts develop a visual storytelling strategy if they've never even thought about that before? They just want to do a photo shoot for something, but if there's more than that. It's a strategy behind that.
The first thing that anyone needs to do before they start spending all this money on a photographer to photograph their photos, their branding photos, or their event photos, or their book photos, or whatever else they need regarding promoting their products or services, is to understand two very important things. How do they want to be perceived by the audience that they serve? And what words represent that perception? And then the second thing they need to think about is what aspects of their personality do they want to convey to those that they serve? Two very important questions, a very important set of words. And those words will help dictate the types of photos that need to be created, the emotional sentiment and the aspects of their personality that need to be conveyed from shot to shot to shot. And then once they establish those high level answers to those questions, that's when they need to start thinking about, well, how do I solve my client's problems? What
Mhm.
does that look like? Does it involve some kind of a one-on-one conversation? Is it a one-to-group conversation? Is it from a stage? Is it in written material? Is it on a screen? Is it, using digital means? Is it analog? All of these different things need to be thought of before they invest in professional photos, because when you have a plan in place and you are intentional and strategic about the types of images that you create, you then have more creative latitude and more opportunity to put yourself out into the world through all of the different touch points that all of us have as business owners across your online presence, to be able to have that consistent look, that consistent positioning, that consistent messaging, visually and written and through video, to be able to create that perception of authority. So you don't just hire somebody, show up in some park somewhere. All right, I got 8 outfits. Let's figure it out. You don't do that. You leave too much up to chance. And most likely what's going to happen is you're going to drop the ball with the photographer, and then you're going to go and have to spend more money to hire a photographer that will be able to get exactly what you need and be able to help your mindset moving forward, knowing that you're going to have to update these photos over and over and over and over again, but you will have a clear focus every single time you do it, because you're working with someone that is helping to organize the session from the very first time.
Yeah, that I like that. I like that. Yeah, you're shooting with a purpose, and I like that. Yeah, for sure. So what are so what then, and you may have alluded to this, some is like, what is the biggest mistake then, that we make when taking photos that are meant to represent our brand?
Well, aside from not being strategic from jump,
Mm-hmm.
the other big miss that a lot of experts or even professional service folks, expert adjacent type industries, that they miss, is they focus on the vanity only of the image. They think to themselves, either A, I look good in the picture and I want to share it, or B, I hate the way my left eye looks, or I look fat, or I got a double chin, or my left shoulder is not, squared to the right. Exactly. Like, they find some crap that they hate about the way that how they perceive themselves when they look in the mirror, and they project that onto every image, and they miss the bigger point, which is, there is value in showing genuine images to your audience. There is value in creating an emotional sentiment based on your body language and your facial expression, the activity that's engaged in front of the camera, the composition of the photo, the lighting. All of that stuff matters, because ultimately, if you're a service-based business, your business is building relationships, and not just transactional, long-term. Therefore, when you're showing these images to people, you need to connect with them beyond the fact that you can help solve their problem. You need to connect with them in a way that lets them know that, hey, this is the kind of person that I can stomach being in a room with for a day and do a mastermind, or get some coaching, or be on the screen with them and do the exact same thing. The point is, we got to work with people we know, like, and trust. That cliche that's so true.
Yes,
It matters. And that's how you need to approach visual storytelling.
So, what types of images should experts include in the showcase then to come up with a real-rounded version of their brand?
When it comes to this question, it's photos that pretty much everybody needs. And then there's the customized types of photos based on who you are, who you serve, the problems you solve, and how you solve those problems. So the ones that pretty much everyone needs are the promotional images. And what I mean by that are the headshots, the tightly cropped photos from the top of the head to the top of the chest, the wider portraits that show people sitting, standing, leaning against the wall, the vertical portrait that shows a little bit more of your body that you put in there for your media kit. These images are important because those are the ones that you use to promote yourself and you put on your website and social profiles, all of those different areas where you need to make direct eye contact with your audience, because you're introducing yourself to them, right? And everybody basically who is a business owner, and specifically in a service-based industry, needs these images. Now, where the customization piece comes in is showcasing the day-to-day life of how this person works. Those activities. How do you brainstorm ideas? What does it look like when you're working with your client? As I mentioned before, is it on a screen? Is it on a stage? Is it multiple people at the same time? Is it a one-on-one? You know, show your people what that stuff looks like. Because if you say that you're an expert who coaches, consults, speaks, trains, whatever, what does that look like? And those are the images that you need, in addition to another layer of your day-to-day life that doesn't necessarily involve a professional photographer. What are the moments that matter in your life that you want to share with your audience and you don't have a paparazzi following you around, right? Well, the good news is you got a camera on you 24/7 and it's your phone. Use the damn phone. Take the photos with your family, take them with your friends, take them with your colleagues. Show what's going on before and after the engagement that you're doing with your clients. Be a human being and humanize your entire brand by having that wide breadth of image content that shows your people all the stuff that you want them to see and be able to give them that opportunity to connect with you across any of those potential opportunities through the types of photos that you're sharing.
When you talk about those kind of candid shots that we're doing ourselves, are those shots that we're sharing on social media? Is it a gallery on our website, or where are those?
Well, here's the good news about that, Audrey. See, you could do whatever you want. The point is you have to be intentional and strategic about it. For example, I have a client that is the gold standard for sharing the work that we create together through our collaborations of photographing the different aspects of his business. And they're all over his website: stage stuff, masterminds, lifestyle portraits, all that stuff. But what he also does is he shares through collages, montages on different pages of his website, smartphone photos taken by audience members, by clients, photos of himself. And it's just a mishmash. And it's on his website, and it's also shared in his stories, and it's also shared in his social media content proper, right, on the different platforms. The point being is that when it comes to certain tasks that you have to do as a business owner, you're not going to send a photo of you at a party with a drink in your hand to a podcast, for example, as your profile image, if if that doesn't aptly represent who you are and how you solve your clients' problems, right? But that does work as a post on Facebook or X or even LinkedIn, just to humanize yourself and your brand overall. So it's really all about the strategy and intention behind it. And then once you have that strategy, you can then post appropriately based on that particular strategy.
All right, so then I should feel comfortable then using this little video clip from my swim lesson this week.
Well, okay. So here's the way that we would handle that. When it comes to the swim lesson, no, and I'm being serious right now.
Okay.
Because I do this with my clients. So with regards to that swim lesson, whether or not you want to share it, how can you share it in a way that is relevant and valuable to your audience while also remaining true to yourself? If you can shape that story with that clip in a way that's going to resonate with your audience, whether it's a teachable moment or it's a personal moment or it's an emotional connection type thing, however, that shakes out when you kind of brainstorm in your mind how to leverage that clip that in a valuable and relevant way to your audience, yeah, you could share it online. Just don't throw stuff up there and expect people to be like, oh, wow, that's cool. You got to give it the context in the caption. And now you have something that is really interesting and outside the norm for what you may normally post.
Yeah, and that's the way my thinking has been lately. It's like, okay, so how can I turn this? You used the concept teachable moment. How can I turn this into a teachable moment? And when you think about swimming, and I'll get back to you, there's a lot of fear involved in that. So so that was really, because we're doing it, I'm screaming, Jesus, yeah, whatever. That's not in the clip, but that was before. But it made me think about it. I'm like, you need to get a video of this, So the guy runs and gets his camera. My coworkers there were laughing. But you're right. It was with a higher purpose.
Yeah, because
Hmm.
fear, who
Hmm.
doesn't feel fear, especially when
Lord.
it comes to your area of expertise? And the
Hmm.
way that you're illustrating it is a wonderful metaphor that is not just within the scope of what your folks normally see. So
Hmm.
that's what makes it memorable. So absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. All right, so I'm getting back to you then. So how can experts leverage, because you also talked about live events, live event photography to
Mhm.
tell even more engaging stories.
Well, again, it is contingent upon how these folks serve. But if we're
Okay.
talking about a keynote speaker, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
say I'm hired to photograph a 60-minute keynote in front of 400 or 500 people, 1,000 people, whatever the case may be. The goal for me is not to simply get 4 or 5 photos that may or may not be valuable based on, you know, people, the speaker is presenting. So we have hands moving, they're moving on foot, pacing back and forth. Their eyes, eyebrows, and mouth are doing some interesting things, and in many cases, and I know this to be true because I've seen other portfolios from experts sharing those types of photos with me. And I noticed that out of the five, there's really only one that kind of sort of maybe works for them to use because the rest of them, like one eye is closed, their mouth's doing something weird, or they're just out of focus, or whatever the case may be. But my goal when I go into any type of an event scenario, especially if we're talking about this keynote thing, is to capture the speaker from every single vantage point humanly possible, showing the audience,
Mm-hmm.
focusing on close ups of the speaker, getting the speaker captured where he or she is on the left side of the screen, the right side of the screen, different compositions, leveraging the tops of the backs of the participants in the audience's heads, using the signage, the IMAGs, the graphics that are up, everything. Because what I want to do is be able to give these folks a wealth of visual assets that, not because I think they're going to use all 175 photos from a 45, 60-minute talk, but what I want to do is create an opportunity for their team or for themselves to be able to have as much creative latitude as possible to create visual assets from that particular shoot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is you give them this portfolio and they're like, all right, I need to update my banner for my speaking page on my website. I want to create a couple of social posts and I need some keynote photos to remind people that I'm a keynote speaker and show the types of stages I'm on. I want to show the audience to show the types of rooms that I'm in. And most importantly, I want to capture a wealth of different emotions conveyed through their presentation. So when they're pausing or they're getting really excited or they're really moving around or they're smiling or they're being serious or they look vulnerable, all of that stuff is important. Why? Because every time that they share a story, it's not always sunshine and roses to their audience, right? You have stories that span the emotional spectrum from being vulnerable all the way up to and including victory. Therefore, your image content needs to reflect that emotional spectrum. So even though, you're there for 60 minutes, the goal is to get images that can fall far and wide across that spectrum so they have as much opportunity to leverage these images as possible and not use the same 2 to 3 shots over and over and over and over again and bore the hell out of their audience with that.
Right. So how can we experts find and hire the right photographer to capture their visual stories?
Well, the first place that I would suggest that experts go to find the right photographer for them is simply by asking the people that are in their world, the people that they trust. Ask them about the experiences that they've had with a branding event or book photographer. And more importantly, instead of just going to the photographer's website and looking at what they post there, if you're cool with that person on a certain level, on that level, a closer level, then what you need to do is ask them to share the entire portfolio of what that photographer sent them, so that you're not just looking at the highlight clips. You're not just looking at what the photographer assumes is their best work. You're looking at the entire beginning, middle, and end of that session. You're looking at the way that they organize those photos. You're looking at the variety that they created in those photos. And you're also looking at the style in which they create these photos, because not all photographers are the same. You could have 10 photographers photographing this cup of coffee right here, right? And they could photograph this, and you're going to get 10 different types of photos, even though it's the same room, the coffee mug didn't move, and everybody's shooting it. So that's how you can kind of discern which photographers work best for you and which ones are not exactly a fit. And I didn't even start talking about price tag yet.
Right.
Because the other thing you need to ask before you even get into the price tag is their temperament and personality, especially with the portrait session. If you don't have a rapport with this person and you don't trust that they have your best interests in mind and they don't aptly prepare you for this session, then they are not the right fit for you. Because guess what's going to happen? You're going to look completely uncomfortable, out of place, and the photos are going to come out like crap. And then guess what? You now got to go spend more money to find the right fit. So nip it in the bud from the beginning. And then that way, you know that you're on the same page with this person. You will have that rapport and connection with them. You trust them. And you have a plan in place to be able to knock everything out.
That's great advice. I like that. So then the other question that I have is, how often should we refresh our visual assets, and what are the signs that it's time for an update?
Well, some people know they need to refresh and they ignore it. So they just put out photos of them from 25 years ago and 30 pounds ago. So
The funeral program photo.
Right. Listen, I'm not besmirching. I'm not going to talk down. I'm just saying that's what it is. Now, the way that you can get around that is by being a little more proactive in terms of really assessing what your visuals look like. You look at your pictures and say to yourself, number one, do I recognize the person in these photos? If the answer is no, you already know it's time to get new photos. But then the other questions are, do these photos represent where I am with my business and not just with the services? I mean, if you're doing new services that you do not have reflected on those landing pages, clearly that is another sign that you need them. But also when you look at them emotionally, from a human being perspective, do you feel comfortable still posting these types of photos? And if the answer is no, then yes, it is also time for you to get new photos. It's not about a certain amount of time that you need. It's not a certain, I have to get photos every 3 months. It's not necessarily the case. You might be able to get away with them for a little bit longer than someone else, or you might not be able to get away with them compared to someone else. The point being is you just have to look at these images and think about, based on the frequency that you're using them, which means, are you now in the point where you're reusing a lot of photos? That is another sign to get new ones. But it's also just to make sure that they are aligned with who you are and where you are in your business, in your life, in your appearance. And then that's when you can really come up with the right answer for you to know when you need to update your images.
Okay. And so if someone wanted to work with you, John, how would we do that?
Just send out a bat signal, and I think that'll work. Aside from that, if you don't have the bat signal, probably the best place to go is my website, johndemato.com, because there I have all of my socials linked. You could come say hi that way, or you could drop a email in the contact. Another thing that I would say is if you're more inclined to kind of dive a little bit deeper into what this whole visual storytelling thing is, I have a blog. I write 3 blogs a week, and you can sign up for it on my website as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that'll definitely be good to do. Chop Squad to follow his blog. And otherwise, get to his website, johndemato.com. So, John, what closing thought or closing advice do you have for us trying to make this, tell this story about who we are and our products and services?
I think the biggest thing that I would love for everyone listening to this would take away from this conversation would be that we need to be who we are in real life. We need to not be afraid to unapologetically be ourselves. And that goes far beyond pictures. That's the way you speak to people. That's the way you write your content. That's just who you are as a person. And when you are able to make that kind of statement to yourself that I am confident in who I am, how I serve, and how I can keep to my promise of being able to solve these particular challenges that my clients have. That's the most important thing you can do, because when you put on a show and you pretend to be something you're not, you're going to end up attracting the wrong types of people. But when you do consciously and confidently put yourself out there through your images, through your words, through the way that you talk to people, in a way that is genuinely you and unapologetically you, that's when your world starts to change for the better.
Wow. Thank you so much. And Chop Squad, sit at his feet and then arrange for a new photo shoot. Yes, we definitely need one with a purpose. Shoot with a purpose here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, John. I really appreciate your time today and your expertise. And when I had read your bio, and I was like, well, this would be a great conversation to have, because this is something close to my heart. Because even now, it's like when things change, professionally or personally, we're different people, and we need to reflect, like you said, that that realness of who we are right then.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It took me a long time to figure that out, by the way. So,
Yeah.
better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, really appreciate it. So, folks, until then, we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Business Shop. We hope that you were able to glean valuable information from our guest and that you will download and share this podcast. Your rating and review is much appreciated. To go deeper with our guests, please visit their website and social channels. To learn more about us, please visit businessshop.info or altogether.biz, where we will help you expand your brand.